Welcome back, guys, to another video. And the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 is just over the horizon. These consoles are coming out in just a couple of days, and honestly, it still feels kind of surreal that we are getting brand new consoles. I still can't fathom having a new PlayStation or having a new Xbox. It just feels weird. And maybe it's just because I haven't seen the systems in person yet. Maybe that's when reality will just hit me in the head. But when I was thinking about this, I started feeling very nostalgic. And I started thinking about, when I was a little bit younger, I didn't understand the concept of launches. I didn't understand that systems, people knew about them. People knew about them for like weeks and months and years, and they were very anticipated, and they were ready to try out something new. Because when I first got into video games, I was a lot younger, and I just remember playing my Nintendo. And one day we went to a department store and seeing the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis just pop out of nowhere. I was just like, oh, brand new video games. And I thought video games were kind of like, almost like the action figure business. You just go in and there's some new toys. But I can honestly remember the first game system that came out on launch that I was very excited about, and that was the Nintendo 64. Now, when I first heard about the Nintendo 64, it was in a video game magazine. I remember flipping through the pages and seeing a picture of this mystery Nintendo console called the Ultra 64, where we would find out that was just a prototype name. But I was just like, wow, this looks so different. It looked brand new. The only thing it had in common compared to the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo was cartridges. And, just like this generation, I feel like we're entering a new era of video games. And back then, that era was the disc-based video game. Looking at it now, this is normal. You go out and you find a game and it's on a disc. But I remember when there was a time when this was the new thing. This was revolutionary. And I was a lot younger back then. I didn't understand the benefits of games being on a disc. I was used to, blowing the cart, putting it in, and playing it. I didn't know, the sound would be better. It would just be a better game overall. But with that being said, I didn't greet disc-based systems like the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn with open arms because I found out that they would have to load. And, as trivial as that sounds today, I was just like, I don't want to wait for my video games. I won the Nintendo 64. Now, the first game I played on the Nintendo 64 is probably the same game everyone played, and that was Super Mario 64. I remember the opening to that video game and seeing this vast world, this 3D environment, something that I was never used to. I was just like, oh my gosh, it was just breathtaking. I thought it was so awesome. And 3D platformers, it's a normal thing, but back then you felt like you were Mario. You felt like you were just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And I remember playing it at a kiosk, and my mom was like shopping, and she'd like coming out of the corner. I could see her out of the corner of my eye, waiting for me to go with her to the checkout counter and leave. And I was just, I didn't want to act like I'd see her. I had tunnel vision. I just kept playing, and she'd just be like, hey, and I'm like, hey, I just keep playing it. But I was just hooked. I thought it was just so freaking fun. The thing I think the Nintendo 64 did right was give us the ability of plugging in 4 controllers. No more multi-tap, and I think the Nintendo 64 really took advantage of that because we had a lot of great multiplayer games. Without a doubt, I have to mention 007 GoldenEye. This was the game that really revolutionized the first-person shooter on consoles. Without this, you wouldn't have Call of Duty or Battlefield. I mean, this really was the game that put that genre on the market. And I remember losing hours on weekends playing this, using that split screen, and also Mario Kart 64. I feel like Mario Kart wasn't a popular series on the Super Nintendo, but Mario Kart 64 is really when this game started to shine, and it's a must-have for your Nintendo 64. Also, the Nintendo 64 controller is a love or hate relationship with most gamers. Some people love it, some people absolutely hate it. I can honestly say I've played better controllers. I wouldn't say it's the worst controller of all time, but it's definitely the weakest link with all the Nintendo controllers to choose from. but it had a lot of revolutionary features, like the analog stick. You know, I felt so bad for these little analog sticks at kiosks or Blockbusters or anywhere like that, because they would get such a beating, and they would start to just form this mysterious white powder from the plastic shavings, and the joystick would just become limp. It just wouldn't have any more life to it. But you also had something really cool, and that was the Rumble Pack. I remember playing Star Fox 64, and I remember that controller rumbling and being like, what the hell is this? This was a really cool feature. I have to say, if you're not a huge N64 controller fan, they do have a Japanese import controller made by Hori called the Hori Mini Pad, which is, it looks a lot like the GameCube controller, and I'd love to have one day, but it's kind of pricey, anywhere from 60 to 80 bucks, but it looks like it'd be a lot of fun. But anyway, guys, that's just some of my memories of the Nintendo 64 launch. You know, and it's hard to believe that there's this system is, for some people, it's their first gaming console. I've talked to people that are in their 20s, and they have this fondness of the Nintendo 64, and it's because this is their first console, like Nintendo was with mine. It makes me feel old, I'm not gonna lie, but it was a great console. And what was some of your favorite launch stories, or what was the first console you got day one that you were really excited about? I'd love to hear from you guys. Just leave a comment below and let me know what it's all about. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.